Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Forest Film Festival's latest miniseries, Music Men, highlighting movies about musicians. Tonight's film is The Music Man from 1962, directed by Morton DaCosta with Robert Preston, Shirley Jones, and a very young Ron Howard, who plays Jones's little brother, Winthrop Peru. The film was adapted from Meredith Willson's 1957 Broadway hit musical, which DaCosta also directed, with a screenplay written by Marion Hargrove. The film was produced and distributed by Warner Brothers, led by Jack Warner, who preferred to film Broadway musicals with what he thought were bigger stars than those who had created the roles on stage. Warner offered the role of Harold Hill to several Hollywood stars, including Bing Crosby, Cary Grant, and Frank Sinatra, all of whom refused to play the role that they thought should be reprised by Preston, who had won a Tony for his Broadway performance. The Music Man was one of the biggest hits of 1962, grossing $18 million, and received many award nominations, among them 6 Oscar nominations, including those for Best Picture and Best Musical Score for Ray Heindorf, who worked on the music with Meredith Willson. Critics reviewed the movie favorably. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times said, "The rich, ripe roundness of the movie and the lavish amalgam of the many elements of successful American show business that Mr. Willson brought together on the stage has been preserved and appropriately made richer through the magnitude of the film." In 2006, the film was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. Jack Warner chose the USC Marching Band to perform in the parade scene, adding additional players from local high school bands to swell the numbers of musicians for the 76 trombones. There were actually 78 trombones performing in that scene, and it took 8 hours of filming over 2 days to shoot it. All the instruments were made for the film by the Olds Instrument Company of Fullerton, California, which later refurbished and sold them after filming was completed. All the location sites were on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, California, particularly on their Midwest Street and Kings Row. Willson and Heindorf provided some very innovative music for the film. The Rock Island song begins with what amounts to a rap introduction, which was very unusual for the time, and Iowa Stubborn and You Got Trouble also begin with verbal patter. 2 of the best-known songs have the same melody, but different tempos. They are Good Night, My Someone and 76 Trombones. At the end of the film, lines from these songs are sung, alternating with each other. The credits are shown in the style of a Broadway curtain call. First, the minor characters appear with their names, and they then proceed to end with the lead role. Plot summary. In the early 20th century American Midwest, a con man who calls himself Harold Hill uses different schemes to bilk gullible townsfolk. He travels around the region pretending to be a music professor with a degree from the Gary, Indiana Conservatory of Music, class of 1905, trying to solve the local social problems by forming boys' marching bands and taking money from the people to buy instruments, music, instructional materials, and band uniforms for their sons. But he really knows nothing about music and has no degree. And after all the purchases arrive and are distributed, he absconds with all the money. The only resident who suspects him of anything is the town librarian, Marion Peru, who suggests that he's a friend, but ultimately keeps silent because her little brother, Winthrop, is so excited about the band. When Harold realizes that he's in love with Marion, he faces a tough decision about whether to leave town or face up to the locals. Fun facts about the film. Early in the film, Harold runs into a former associate, Marcellus, in River City livery stable. Marcellus calls him Gregory, which is the only clue we have to his real name. We never learn his real surname. Shirley Jones was pregnant with her son, Patrick Cassidy, during filming. In the scene at the footbridge, where she and Robert Preston embrace, her yet-to-be-born infant kicked Preston, who later met young Patrick and told him that they had met before. Also at the footbridge, Harold says he's expecting a telegram from Rudy Frimmel, a direct reference to the great composer Rudolf Frimmel. Many years later, Jones said that Ron Howard was very anxious about having to dance in his Gary, Indiana number, but that she was able to coax him into performing. There is during the second song and dance number in the film, Iowa Stubborn, there's a direct reference to the famous Grant Wood painting, American Gothic, which depicts a time-worn farm couple standing in front of a Victorian Gothic farmhouse. Here we see a similar couple step into a rudimentary frame, pose for a moment, and step out of it to join their neighbors. The farmhouse in the painting is actually the Dibble House, aka the American Gothic House, which is located in Eldon, Iowa, where Wilson was born. The location site for River City's town square, where Harold sings "You Got Trouble," was the Midwest Street on Warner Brothers' back lot. The storefront for River City's Candy Kitchen was used again 40 years later for TV's Gilmore Girls in 2000. In the diner scene, Harold tries to remember a Shakespeare quote, saying, "Cowards die 1,000 deaths, a brave man only 500, to which Marion says, "Something like that." The quote is actually from Julius Caesar, Act 2, Scene 2, when Gaio Girelio Cesare says, "Cowards die many times before their deaths, the valiant taste of death but once." The Buffalo Bills Quartet were champions of the Society for the Preservation and Encouraging of Barbershop Quartet Singing in America. When the mayor's wife performs in the spectacle with her school children, she says, "Now count to 20 in the Indian tongue," and then counts in what appears to be nonsense words: een, teen, tether, nether, thip. This is actually a variant of traditional British sheep counting. Just before the Light a Rose song, Harold mentions a bassoon player named Madame Reaney. Reaney was Wilson's wife's nickname. The dance that Harold and Marion perform in the Shipoopi number is the Castle Walk, created by Vernon and Irene Castle. The mayor's daughter, Zena, has a meeting of the Epworth League, which was a youth group of the Methodist Episcopal Church. In the train scene, the salesman's sample cases are in the overhead rack. At least 3 of them tout real products: Worcester dictionaries, Worcester's balsam and wild cherry, and Fowler's humor cream. Harold uses a training melody with the boys, reading it as la-di-da, la-di-da. This tune is really Beethoven's Minuet in G. There are 3 fantasy sequences in the film. At the fair, Harold directs an imaginary band whose reflection is seen in the pond. In the Pick a Little, Talk a Little number, Mrs. Shin and her friends become a gaggle of hens, and at the end, the ragtag River City Band morphs into a world-class 200-piece Sousa orchestra marching through the town. What to look for? The footbridge scene where Preston and Jones embrace, and Marcellus addresses Harold as Gregory. The homage to Grant Wood's painting American Gothic. The sheep counting language in Mrs. Shin's spectacle. The Buffalo Bills appearing as the school board. The salesman's sample cases in the train scene. Beethoven's Minuet in G. The reference to Renee Wilson. The Shakespearean misquote, quote, the Castle Walk. The reference to Rudolf Frimmel. Little Ronnie Howard's dance moves. The Candy Kitchen facade, the Midwest Street set on Warner Brothers' back lot, the USC Spirit of Troy marching band, and Meredith Wilson's amazing music. Now it's time to watch The Music Man, settle in, grab a snack, and wait a few minutes for the film to roll. Enjoy.